The snow fell softly on the Chicago streets that December evening, covering everything in a blanket of white. Margaret Sullivan stood beside her stalled car, her 4-year-old daughter Emma, bundled in her pink winter coat, pressed close against her side. The engine had simply given up, right there on the quiet residential street, and Margaret felt her heart sink as the temperature continued to drop. She was a widow. Her husband David had passed away 2 years earlier, leaving her to raise Emma alone. They managed barely on her salary as a library assistant. But moments like these, moments when the car broke down and she had no emergency fund for repairs, these were the moments when the weight of it all pressed down on her shoulders. Emma looked up at her with those big, trusting eyes. "Is the car sleeping, Mommy?" Margaret managed a smile, though worry gnawed at her. "Something like that, sweetheart." She pulled out her phone to call a tow truck, dreading the cost she couldn't afford, when a sleek black sedan pulled up beside them. The window rolled down, and a man in his early 40s with dark hair and kind eyes looked out at them with concern. "Having car trouble?" he asked gently. Margaret hesitated. She'd taught Emma about stranger danger, yet there was something about this man's demeanor that felt safe. Besides, what choice did she have in the freezing cold? "The engine just died," she admitted. "I was about to call for help." The man stepped out of his car. He wore an expensive charcoal suit under his wool coat, but he didn't seem to mind the snow. "Let me take a look. I'm Robert, by the way. Robert Chen, Margaret. And this is Emma." Robert knelt down in the snow, his dress pants getting soaked, and smiled at the little girl. "Hi, Emma. I like your hat." Emma touched her white knit cap with the fuzzy pom-pom and giggled. For the next 20 minutes, Robert worked on the car while Margaret and Emma waited. He didn't complain about the cold or his ruined suit. He asked Margaret about the sounds the car had been making, checked under the hood with a small flashlight from his own vehicle, and even crawled partially under the car to examine something underneath. Finally, he stood up, brushing snow from his knees. "I've got it running, but it's not a permanent fix. Your alternator is failing. You'll need to get it to a mechanic soon. How much do I owe you?" Margaret asked, though she wasn't sure she could pay whatever he might ask. Robert shook his head. "Nothing at all. Just promise me you'll get it properly fixed." "This won't last more than a few days." Margaret felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know what this means to us." "We all need help sometimes," Robert said simply. He pulled out his business card and handed it to her. "If you have any trouble finding a good mechanic, call me. I know someone honest who won't overcharge you." Margaret glanced at the card. Her eyes widened. "Robert Chen, Chief Executive Officer, Chen Industries." She looked back at him, stunned. This man, this CEO of a major company, had just spent his evening lying in the snow to fix a stranger's car. "I don't understand," she said. "Why would you?" Robert's expression grew distant for a moment, touched with an old sadness. "My father was a mechanic, taught me everything he knew. And my mother, she raised me alone after he died. I remember what it was like for her, struggling to keep everything together. When I see someone who needs help, I think of her." Emma tugged on Margaret's coat. "Mommy, I'm cold." "Of course, sweetie. We should go." Margaret looked at Robert one more time. "Thank you, truly." As they drove away, Emma waved at Robert through the rear window, and he waved back. Standing alone in the falling snow, 3 days later, Margaret's car finally died completely in the parking lot of her workplace. She remembered Robert's card and called the mechanic he'd recommended. The man was indeed honest and kind, and he gave her a payment plan she could actually manage. 2 weeks passed. Christmas was just days away, and Margaret took Emma downtown to see the decorated store windows. They couldn't afford much this year, but she wanted Emma to experience some holiday magic. They were standing outside a toy store, Emma's nose pressed against the glass, when Margaret heard it. "Mommy, look! That's the man who fixed our car." Emma was pointing excitedly across the street. Margaret looked. Robert Chen stood there in another expensive suit, surrounded by what looked like business colleagues. They were clearly heading into the upscale restaurant next door. Before Margaret could stop her, Emma broke away and ran toward him, calling out, "Mr. Robert! Mr. Robert!" Margaret hurried after her, embarrassed, but when Robert saw Emma, his serious business expression melted into a genuine smile. He excused himself from his colleagues and knelt down to Emma's level. "Hello, Emma. How's your mother's car?" "It's all better. The nice man you know fixed it really good." Robert looked up at Margaret, who had finally caught up, breathless and apologetic. "I'm so sorry," Margaret said. "She saw you and just ran." "I didn't mean to interrupt your dinner." "You're not interrupting anything important," Robert said, standing. His colleagues had gone inside, and he seemed in no hurry to join them. "I'm glad the car's fixed. How are you both doing?" They talked for a few minutes on the snowy sidewalk. Margaret found herself telling him about her job at the library, about how Emma loved books, about the small Christmas they were planning. She wasn't sure why she shared so much, perhaps because he listened with such genuine interest, without a trace of pity or judgment. "We're doing okay," Margaret concluded. "Better than okay, actually. Thanks to you." Robert was quiet for a moment, then said something unexpected. "I have a confession to make. That night I helped you. I needed that as much as you did." Margaret looked at him questioningly. "I'd just come from visiting my mother's grave," he explained softly. It was the anniversary of her death. "I was driving around, feeling lost, wondering if all the success I'd achieved would have made her proud, or if I'd lost sight of what really mattered." He paused. "Then I saw you too, and I had a chance to do something she would have been proud of. You gave me a gift that night, even if you didn't know it." Margaret felt her throat tighten with emotion. "I think she would be very proud of the man you've become." Emma tugged on Robert's coat. "Are you eating dinner? We're going to have mac and cheese when we get home." "It's my favorite," Robert smiled. "Mac and cheese sounds wonderful. Much better than what's on the menu in there." An idea seemed to occur to him. He looked at Margaret hesitantly. "This might be forward of me, but would you and Emma like to join me for dinner?" "Not in there." He gestured to the fancy restaurant. "But there's a family diner down the block that makes the best hot chocolate in the city. My mother used to take me there when I was about Emma's age." Margaret saw the loneliness in his eyes, the same loneliness she felt every day. Two people who'd lost someone they loved, trying to navigate a world that felt too big and too empty. "We'd love to," she said. They walked to the diner through the falling snow, Emma between them holding each of their hands. Over hot chocolate and grilled cheese sandwiches, they talked like old friends. Robert told them stories about his childhood, about learning to fix cars in his father's garage. Margaret shared memories of David and how she was trying to keep his memory alive for Emma. As the evening drew to a close, Robert walked them to Margaret's car. Before they parted, he said, "I know this might sound strange, but I'd like to see you both again. Not because I feel sorry for you, I don't, but because tonight, for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone." Margaret looked at this successful, kind man who'd knelt in the snow to help a stranger, and she realized she didn't feel alone either. "We'd like that very much," she said. From the back seat, Emma called out, "Can we show Mr. Robert our Christmas tree? It's really small, but Mommy said it's perfect for us." Robert met Margaret's eyes. "I'd be honored to see your Christmas tree." As they drove home that night, Emma in the back seat and Robert following in his own car, Margaret thought about how life can change in unexpected moments. How kindness creates ripples that spread farther than we can imagine. How sometimes, when we help others, we're really helping ourselves find our way back to what matters. That night, standing in their small apartment with its tiny tree and modest decorations, Margaret watched Robert lift Emma so she could place the star on top. She saw the joy in his eyes, the peace that had replaced his earlier loneliness. Sometimes, she thought, the greatest gifts we receive are the ones we give away first. And as Emma pointed at Robert and said proudly, "That's the man who fixed our car, Mommy, and now he's our friend." Margaret knew that something had been fixed that evening that went far deeper than a car's alternator. Sometimes, three people on different journeys find themselves walking the same path, and sometimes that path leads home.